Hello, Bunny. Welcome back to the Tim Mask channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tim Man Taylor, and today I'm going to be reacting to my third and final scary storyteller channel for you all, and it's Night Time Spooks. And the video that I'll be reacting to is 3 true Home Alone horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we?
This happened about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I was, I think, about 12 or 13 at the time. One night on a Friday after I got home from school, my parents told me they were going to dinner with some friends. That meant I would be home alone for the night. I was the only child, and my parents would occasionally leave me alone. I always enjoyed it because I felt cool and grown up to have the whole house to myself.
I know what you mean. I'm the only child of my parents too, and every time they go out for a little date night or go shopping or go see one of my other family members, I feel like I'm on top of the world because I got the place to myself. So I know what he's talking about here. But anyway, let's continue on with the story and see what happens next.
I asked my parents if I could have my friend Brian over, and he came over a little bit later. We played some basketball, and then my parents left. Me and Ryan played some video games for a few hours after that, and then he left to go home. I stayed in my room playing Madden on my PlayStation. About 20 minutes later, I thought I heard a noise coming from downstairs. It was now around 9 p.m., so I assumed it was my parents and I thought nothing of it. However, not too long after that, I got a call from my mom on the phone, and she told me that they wouldn't be home for about another hour. Still, I had forgotten about the noise at that point, and I kept playing video games. That is, until out of the corner of my eye, I was sure I saw somebody walk past my bedroom and down the hall.
How in the world can you forget that whole noise thing unless it was just like it just slipped your mind? But I remember it. And plus, if your parents said that they won't be home for like another hour, I would have been like, I thought I heard a noise like somebody was in the house. But they probably chalk it up to be like, oh, you're just hearing things. But if you saw someone walk past your room, I would have been quietly calling the cops because you don't want to go face to face with someone that's dangerous.
I had my bedroom door open only about a foot or two, but I was sure I had seen somebody walk by. I tried to convince myself that it was just our cat or something, but suddenly I got really creeped out, and I wasn't feeling safe in my bedroom anymore. I wanted to get out of the house, but I was afraid of what I had seen. I waited in silence to see if I could hear anything else, but there was no noise. Then I heard the floor creak at the end of the hall past my bedroom. My door didn't have a lock on it, and was on the second floor, so I felt if I made a run for it, I would be able to safely get downstairs and outside. I just didn't know who or what was at the end of my hallway. I was too scared to make any noise or look down the hall. I just sat there in my chair, staring at the crack in my door to see if whoever was there would walk by again. After a couple of minutes, I finally got enough courage to walk over to the door. I did it as quietly as possible, and then stood next to the door and listened. I didn't hear anything, so I decided that on the count of 3, I would quickly walk out of my room and down the stairs as quietly as possible, and then go out of my house. I took a deep breath and quickly left my room. But as I did, I guess that my curiosity got the better of me, and I looked to the end of the hallway. I saw a dirty woman with really messy hair crouched down against the wall with her hands over her face. As soon as she saw me, she started to scream.
Oh, that would be terrifying right there. It's probably a woman that's high on some sort of drugs and don't know what she's doing. And she thought that the house was safe and secure. But run out of the house, call the cops before she gets up and follows you.
I was more than freaked out, and I ran as fast as I could down the stairs and out the front door. As I did, I heard her screaming getting louder and louder. When I got outside, I immediately took out my phone and called my parents. They told me to call the police, so I did, and then I ran to Ryan's house, which was about 5 minutes away. My parents picked me up from Ryan's, and then we all went back to my house where we saw multiple police cars with flashing lights as well as an ambulance. I had to talk to the police, and my parents did for a while too. I guess when Ryan left out the front door, he left it open, and a lady that was messed up on drugs walked right in. It was something I will never forget.
Daggum you, Ryan. You should have closed it all the way, but also, this dude telling the story should have checked all the windows and doors just to make sure everything was locked as well. But that's just crazy to think that you're in your house by yourself and nobody's literally robbing you. They're just wandering around, and then all of a sudden you see a woman hiding, crouched down. But then that'd be creepy just to hear her screaming loudly like a maniac. Thankfully, the cops got there before she left, and the ambulance is there probably just to take her to a mental hospital, get checked out. That would be a scary night to bear witness to remember. I'm just glad he did the right thing and ran out and got help, and he was okay. So let's get to story number 2.
This is the story of the first time I ever remember being left home alone.
Okay.
I'm guessing I was 8 or 9 years old or so. I had 2 older siblings, so usually when my parents went somewhere, they would stay home with me. But finally one day, my parents were both at work, and my sisters left to go to a friend's house, so I was home alone for the first time in my life. It was a strange feeling being all alone in our house. I remember I was a little scared, so I even went to all the windows and shut them and made sure all of our doors were locked. I knew nothing would happen, but still, I did it to make myself feel safer.
That's right. I'll be doing the same thing too, because you definitely don't want no stranger from the outside of your house seeing in, knowing that you're home alone.
I remember I went into the living room and turned on the TV and started watching. I was having a relaxing afternoon until I heard a knock on our front door. I was a very shy kid, and we lived in an area that was rare to get people at our front door because our house was the only house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. I didn't know why anybody would be knocking at our front door. I wanted to go see who it was, but I had no intentions of answering it unless I knew the person. So I quietly went to a window of a nearby room and peeked out of it. I slowly looked out and ducked down so whoever it was couldn't see me. I saw that it was an old lady knocking on our front door, but I didn't recognize her at all.
Yeah, if you don't recognize somebody at your front door, don't answer it or try not to make yourself noticed, because she can like look in the window if you're staring at her at the same time and knock louder or hear you making a commotion in there.
She had white hair and was wearing a hat and also a jacket. I decided to wait until she left before I went back to watching TV. She knocked and then waited a few seconds and then knocked again. She continued this for several minutes. It felt like a long time, and I had no idea what she could possibly want. Then she walked away, but instead of walking back down the driveway, she went around the side to the back of the house. Now I was feeling a little bit more concerned. I walked to a window at the back of the house and again was very careful not to be seen or heard. She started knocking on the back door of the house this time. She continued this for several minutes and then walked back to the front of the house when I didn't answer. I was so relieved when I finally saw her start to walk down my driveway to the street. I saw a car parked on the side of the street, kind of hidden behind a tree, and the old lady walked to it. I kept watching her as she opened the passenger's door of the car and got in. I could see in her window from this angle, but as she sat in the passenger seat, I saw her remove her hat and then reach for the top of her head and removed a mask to reveal that it was not an old lady, but a man.
Unbelievable. I heard of stories where men would dress up like old ladies just to lure kids to them, and then they kidnap them or rob them. So you did the right thing for not opening the door.
My jaw dropped when I saw this. I saw the person throw the mask and hat into the back seat, and then the car drove away. I may never know why a man pretending to be an old lady came knocking on my door, but it gives me the creeps to think about it.
And you didn't tell your parents or the cops about this? I mean, I would have, but then the parents probably would have been scared of you staying at the house by yourself ever again. They would probably ask you to help them with something in the car, and then they push you in and kidnap you. It's scary to think about nowadays, because there's companies out there that are making them high-end quality silicone old man or woman masks, and you'd be fooled if somebody was wearing one of those thinking that it was an actual old person. But thank God you didn't go to the door just to see what that person wanted, and they backed off and left. That'd be scary to bear witness to.
Hi, my name is Jay, and this is the most traumatizing experience of my life. I was 11 at the time when this occurred. It was just a day like any other. My parents were both doctors, so they constantly went in and out of work, so I was home by myself a lot. I never had a problem being home alone. On this night, it was 8 o'clock, and I was just watching a movie when I started hearing rustling in my bushes.
First of all, I applaud your parents for being doctors because they're working their butts off to save people's lives in hospitals every day. But I could also see it being saddening and stressful because they're always on call and you won't be able to spend time with them as much. But if you hear rustling in the bushes, I'll be concerned.
My cat had gone for a walk, so I thought she was coming back and didn't think anything of it. 5 minutes passed by, and I had forgotten about the rustling until I saw my motion light turn on. I again thought it was my cat, so I just kept watching the movie. Some more time went by, and the motion light was still on, so now I was a little interested. I went to look out my window, but I saw nothing. Okay, weird, I told myself. About 10 minutes later, I saw my motion light turn on, and this time, I thought it was some kids trying to mess with me. So instead of looking out the window, I turned on my dad's camera system, but what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. 3 large men wearing Vendetta masks were standing on my patio porch. I immediately turned off my TV and the lights and went into my kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. Then I immediately ran into my mom and dad's master bedroom, locked the door, and hid under their bed. I used the bed sheets to cover me. I then dialed 911 and told the officer I needed help.
Oh, yeah, that would be scary to see 3 men wearing Vendetta masks. I'd be like, what in the world do they want? Are they here to rob the place or they just targeted you for no reason at all? I mean, that's scary. But I'm glad he did the right thing, or this kid did the right thing and turned the TV and off and made sure everything was locked up downstairs and closed, and went up into the master bedroom and hid while calling the cops. Because if this kid didn't, them guys in the Vendetta mask were just already been breaking in looking for him. But I hope the cops get there before they decide to bail out.
The female officer told me there were 2 officers in the area and that they were immediately en route to my house. The officer wanted to keep me on the line, but I wasn't thinking clearly in the heat of the moment, and I hung up. 5 minutes felt like hours as I waited in that dark room until I heard glass shattering. The bitter truth then hit me as I realized that they had broken into the living room window and were making their way inside. I then heard them make their way upstairs and towards the master bedroom where I was hiding. They tried the door, and when they saw that it was locked, they broke it open. When I heard them break the door, I literally peed myself. They went into the bedroom, and I heard them first go to the closet, where my dad kept his very important and valuable documents. The closet was at the other side of the room, and I knew I had to think fast. So I took a risk and got out from the other side of the bed and ran as fast as Usain Bolt, screaming as I ran through the living room and outside. The miraculous sound of police sirens was like music to my ears as I flagged them down. They pulled over and I ran and hugged them and said that they were in the master bedroom. Some officers ran into my house, and moments later I heard shouting and then 3 gunshots. 10 minutes later, 2 ambulances arrived, along with my family and some friends who were worried sick. The rest of the night was me making statements and filling out police reports. I then learned 2 hours later that when the cops went into the house, they saw that the men were making their way upstairs. They told the men to freeze, but one of the men pulled out a gun and fired it at the officers. It hit the officer in the leg, and the other cop shot 2 bullets back, killing one of the suspects instantly and causing the other 2 to surrender. If you're wondering, the cop that was shot did survive. This experience was extremely traumatic, and I had to take therapy for the next 8 months to cope with what happened that night. I still get chills running down my spine when I think about what those men would have done to me if they had found me.
I can see you having therapy for that because that is traumatic. I'm just glad you did the right thing and hightailed it out of that room before they grabbed you. But yeah, when you're on the line with 911 dispatchers, don't hang up because they'll think that something happened to you. But it makes you wonder why those guys want the dad's documents unless they were planning on hacking his information and doing identity. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Nighttime Spooks related content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Core channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. And I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day.